have a bit of an obsession with finding the perfect carry-on bag? It's partly due to the fact that more and more people want to fly carry-on only these days, and yet there are so many inconsistencies between what luggage companies say their bags measure, what they actually measure in real life, and what different airlines, or even different airports for the same airline, will actually allow on board. So naturally, one of the most common questions I get is, will my bag fit? I get comments, emails, DMs every single day. I want to answer as many of those questions as possible. I do have this growing database of specific bags that will fit on specific airlines, but it's just not humanly possible to go through every single bag on every single airline because there's a lot more to it than just plugging in your luggage size into a compliance calculator tool. But what I can tell you is that there are 4 things that decide almost every time whether your carry-on gets to come on board with you, as well as some extra tips to make sure that it does. The first thing that determines if your carry-on makes it on board is the plane itself, because not all aircraft are built the same. Some planes have overhead bins that could fit a small car, others can barely handle a winter jacket. The 2 most common passenger aircraft types you'll probably fly on are the Airbus A320 family and the Boeing 737 family. Between them, there are tens of thousands of these flying every single day. They dominate short and medium haul routes worldwide. But even within those families, bin sizes can vary a lot. For example, a Boeing 737-800 might have those huge sky interior bins where you can fit most carry-ons wheels first, like books on a shelf, while an older 737 or smaller Airbus A319 might require your bag to go sideways and sometimes fit a lot less.
Is it gonna work? Hell yeah, it is.
Perfect. And if you're flying on a regional jet like a CRJ or Embraer E175 or even a Dash 8, just know that space gets really tight on those smaller aircraft. Even bags that technically meet the airline size limits often get gate checked on these planes. So before you pack, check your aircraft type. It's usually listed right on your booking page. You want to look for terms like A320, 737, or CRJ 900. And if you see one of those smaller regional jets, just plan ahead. Make sure you have a smaller personal item that you can move items into in case you do need to gate check. And keep all of your valuables, your tech, and your medications in your personal item, not in your roller bag. But the good news is I've personally tested several carry-ons on these regional jets, and here are the ones that definitely fit, albeit horizontally. The Away carry-on, the Monos carry-on, the Brick Spinner, and this Samsonite LePau. And if you're flying the big guys, like the wide-body aircraft, those bins are much bigger and can accommodate bags stacked on their sides like books. The second thing that decides if your carry-on actually makes it on board is the crew, meaning the ticketing agents and the gate agents. Because at the end of the day, it's humans enforcing the rules, and they don't all enforce them the same way. Some gate agents will happily wave you through with a wink and a smile, or make it look like they're not paying attention, even though they are, to what you're bringing on board. Others will make you put your bag in the sizer, even if it visibly fits overhead. Honestly, they see hundreds and hundreds of bags a day, and a good gate agent can eyeball bags with the precision of a tailor. But once in a while, you do get the "we're checking everything today" kind of agent, usually when the flight's full or running behind schedule. So much of this comes down to how full the flight is, how tight the turnaround is, and whether or not they've had to deal with sour passengers all shift long. It's not personal, they're just trying to get 100 people, 100 bags, and one narrow aisle situation sorted out on schedule. And I offer this advice not to help people sneak bigger bags on board, but it's because it's in everyone's best interest to play by the rules. When travelers respect the carry-on limits, everything moves smoother. Flights depart on time, crews stay on schedule, there's fewer delays, and that means fewer added costs across the board. The problem is that some passengers are getting carried away with carry-ons. That's what leads to gate chaos and costly delays, because now crews are stuck playing Tetris with backpacks, jackets, pillows, duty-free bags, and other souvenirs. And that domino effect adds up. One delayed boarding means the next plane can't pull in, and then ground crews wait longer, and all that time costs money. And guess where that cost ends up? Right back onto your ticket, in the form of higher fares or new bag fees. So the moral of the story? Choose a carry-on that actually fits. Something tried and tested. I like the Travel Pro, which is one of the most used brands in the airline industry. Those gate agents know exactly how well a Travel Pro fits, and you'll have a much smoother experience because of it. And speaking of, a favorite personal item bag among flight attendants is the bento bag from Nomad Lane, the sponsor of today's video. And I personally love traveling with it. I call it the perfect airport and flight bag. It's personal item sized, so it fits under the seat in front of you, and it has so many perfectly placed pockets to hold all of your items. And that allows you to get through airport security in a breeze. My bag never gets pulled aside for a second look because everything is easily visible when it's organized inside the bento bag. I pair it with my roller carry-on, and because it has a slim profile, it slides down the narrow airplane aisle easily. As soon as I get to where I'm sitting, I slide it off of my carry-on, place it on the seat, put my carry-on in the overhead bin, and then grab my seat. All of this takes about 12 seconds, and it holds no one up behind me. And once the flight is going, with all the perfectly placed pockets, I can find everything I need with ease. If you haven't got yourself a bento bag yet, check out the link below and use code ALLY10 for a discount. And keep watch in the pinned comment because sometimes they run sales, so I'll make sure to update down there. Chris and I also love their sling bags too. They're great to hold all of your small things when you're going through the airport and then turn into the perfect sightseeing day bag. Now, the third thing that decides if your carry-on actually makes it on board is when you board. You could have the most perfectly sized, rule-abiding bag in the world, but if you're one of the last people to step on the plane, those overhead bins are already full of backpacks and duty-free bags and other random things that probably should have been consolidated into a bag prior to boarding. And even though I wish there was a better system, bin space is technically first come, first served. And once it's gone, gate agents and flight attendants have no choice but to start checking bags. Your boarding group number is basically your bag's survival ranking. You can find it printed on your boarding pass, either as a number or a letter, or something like Zone 1 or Group 3, for example. And airlines typically assign these automatically based on your ticket type, elite status, or credit card perks. If you're flying with status or business class, congrats, you are automatically in an early group. And speaking of business class, I actually got to experience it for the first time this year, thanks to a deal I found that popped up in my Daily Drop Pro membership. I know for most of us, business class is virtually unaffordable, myself included, but when I saw that it was $4,000 less than usual for Chris and I to fly to Europe, I had to book the seats, especially considering he's 6'9". It was something I never thought I would get to do, and I'm so grateful that we got to experience it. Daily Drop Pro has 2 tiers. There's a free and a paid membership. This isn't sponsored. I pay for my pro version every year. So at the very least, please sign up for the free version, play around with it, see if you can get any deals. And it's actually even better if you have points to use as well. And they usually have sales once or twice a year on the pro membership, so you could always hold out for that. But if you are flying economy, there are still ways to improve your odds. You can get airline status. Even the lower tiers usually board earlier. You can use the airline credit card. Many of those come with priority boarding as a perk. And you can book a higher fare class or bundle ticket. It's not glamorous, but it can bump you up a group or 2. If you are in one of the last groups, like 6 or 7, I've even seen groups 8 or 9, you're going to be at the mercy of the bins. By that point, every inch of space is sometimes claimed, and even rule-following bags might get gate checked. Which brings us straight into the next factor that determines where you end up in that boarding order in the first place. Your fare type. Because at the end of the day, your boarding group, and whether your carry-on comes with you, starts with the kind of ticket that you bought in the first place. Not all tickets are created equal. Airlines have quietly turned carry-on access into more of a perk, one that depends entirely on how much you paid. Like I said, if you're flying business class, premium economy, or even on a bundled fare, you're usually good to go. You'll board early, and not only will you find bin space waiting for you, on many airlines this ticket fare sometimes includes 2 carry-ons and multiple checked bags. But if you're on a basic economy or light fare ticket, that's where things can get tricky. Many of these lower tier tickets now exclude overhead bin access entirely. For example, on United, JetBlue, and WestJet, basic economy often means personal item only. In Europe, on Ryanair and EasyJet, for example, they're notorious for limiting overhead bin use unless you pay extra for priority boarding or a plus fare. Even Air Canada and Lufthansa have economy light fares that technically allow 1 carry-on, but board so late that the bins are usually full. I remember recently sizing my carry-on bag for the Air France sizer. It fit perfectly, by the way, but the ticket agent told me that even though it fits, if I was in boarding group 4 or 5 or 6, the bins might be full and I would be forced to check it. I can't remember what zone I was in at this point, but it was an economy ticket booked through another airline, which usually means you're at the back of the bus. And I was actually making a tight connection. I was actually one of the very last people to board this plane. I was in row 21, and even though the flight was pretty full, there was still enough room in the overhead bin for both me and my travel companions' carry-ons. I share that story because I don't want you to think that just because you're in a late boarding group, you'll automatically have no access to bin space. But before you book, always check the fare details, not just the price. If you see phrases like personal item only or no overhead access, that's your sign you might need to be prepared to gate check. You can upgrade strategically, sometimes paying $30 to $50 more for a regular economy fare gets you both early boarding and guaranteed overhead access, and comes with a carry-on. But make sure you only pay for what you need. Sometimes airlines will try to sell you bundles that make it seem like you're getting a really good deal, but it might be cheaper to add things individually compared to a bundle. And I always recommend booking through the airline directly. Third-party sites often hide the fare restrictions until checkout, especially if you use a flight aggregator like Google Flights. The price often doesn't reflect a carry-on bag, unless you check it in the filter, because that's new. And also, use airline cards or loyalty programs when you can. Even the lowest tiers can sometimes include priority boarding, which means more bin space and less stress. So while your aircraft, the crew, the timing all play a part, your ticket type does play a big role in how early you board, and whether your bag comes with you or takes its own little vacation in the cargo hold. Do you think carry-on rules have gotten stricter, or are travelers pushing it more? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're curious how your favorite airline stacks up, I tested over 70 of them to find out which ones are carry-on friendly. You can catch that video here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.